Welcome to Offscreen. This week we're reading When the Streetlights Go On by Chris Hutton and Eddie O'Keefe. In the early 1980s, a town suffers through the aftermath of a brutal murder of a high school girl and a teacher. So it's kind of like a coming-of-age story and a thriller.
Steven is sick.
Yeah,
That's more
true.
important.
Just a cold, though. I probably won't die. What if I died right now, like on the podcast?
We'd probably get a ton of downloads.
You'd have to keep it, and you couldn't cut it. No one's ever died before on a podcast.
No, I would totally put that in. Yeah.
So it'd be too big. I wouldn't want you to pass up that opportunity.
I'd probably write a script about it.
Shoot. Maybe it would
It'd
appear
be
on the blacklist, like this script did in 2011.
Good segue.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2011 Blacklist.
It was picked up by Hulu to be made into like a TV series. So I think it's kind of like a procedural, like a thriller kind of.
I will say it reminded me a lot of Twin Peaks, actually.
Sure, yeah. An investigation type thing.
Yeah,
it's like a coming of age story too.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah, it centers around a murder, but it's very much like about the whole town. I feel like it's an ensemble kind of thing.
Definitely.
What do we know about these guys that wrote it?
So, I guess they've gotten made, but it hasn't been released. It's still looking for distribution. A movie called Shangri-La Suite.
Right.
That stars Emily Browning and
Ron Livingston plays Elvis.
Yeah.
The guy from Office Space. It's about, I guess, two guys that try to kill Elvis. Two people, or like a couple that tries to kill Elvis.
I think so, yeah.
In the 70s. So they're not just writers, but they're both kind of young, up-and-coming filmmakers. Anyway, should I get to the summary?
I think you should hop into the synopsis.
You did that last time. I feel like you're trying to make it rhyme or like hop into the synopsis.
And then I get cold feet and
it's not working.
And I back out.
All right.
Okay.
So, summer of 1983 in Colfax, Illinois. A dark spell falls over the sleepy suburb when Chrissy Monroe is murdered, together with her high school English teacher. The two are having an affair. A 15-year-old boy named Charlie discovers their bodies in the woods, and it's through his eyes we see the rest of the story. Charlie tells us that after Chrissy's death, her sister Becky became the center of attention. Chrissy's old boyfriend, Ben, even makes a move on her. However, she's much more interested in a boy named Casper Tatum, a local burnout and the prime suspect in Chrissy's murder. These suspicions are confirmed when the two boys get into a fight over Becky. Casper bludgeons Ben to death with a rock, then flees town. Now at the center of two murders, Becky drops out of school and exiles herself at home. She warms up to our narrator, Charlie, who lives across the street. They embark on a whirlwind romance, but just as it seems things have returned to normal, Becky too is suddenly murdered. The killer, a man named Mr. Jablonski from a few houses down, is caught when he's seen by a bank teller placing a bloody piece of fabric into his safe deposit box. As it turns out, Casper Tatum was only ever guilty of Ben's death. Charlie reflects on all of this at his 20th high school reunion, saying, "But life goes on. We come of age in spite of and because of adversity, and every night when the streetlights go on in Colfax, ghosts roam the avenues looking for salvation."
Cool. Nicely done.
Threw a quote in there. Don't usually do that, but that seemed like what was supposed to be important there. That kind of crystallized or like encapsulated things at the end, his last line. Or
Sure.
It was supposed to.
Sure.
I don't know if it did.
What do you think?
Overall, I liked this. First of all, I guess I should say there's not really like a main character here, which was kind of interesting to me. Like, Charlie is the narrator, and we see a lot of it sort of from his perspective, but it jumps around a lot, and it's not really tracking one particular person's story. It's really just more of a concept that is the focus, which is who killed Chrissy and the various suspects, because there are a few people that you're made to suspect at different times, and ultimately all of those are wrong. But that's what was interesting about it to me. It was that it didn't have a main character. It had just like a main focus, and it still worked pretty well, I think. So yeah, I'm sort of positive on this. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about it, but what did you think?
I think overall I was really positive about it.
Okay.
Um, I think it should be noted that, or maybe you did note this, that you said it, but yeah, the film makes extensive use of voiceover, of Charlie's voiceover throughout the screenplay.
Yeah, and it's like an older Charlie that's narrating, but we're watching it through him as like a 15, 16-year-old.
Right, but you definitely see, it's definitely kind of mutates in perspective, I feel like.
It becomes very omniscient at times.
It becomes
more
very...
than it could, more than Charlie possibly could be.
Right.
But it's really cool, and I don't know how to explain it exactly except with examples. Like, so when I was saying Casper, the kid that everyone thinks killed Chrissy, he gets into a fight with this other kid from school and like ends up beating him to death. He
With
doesn't.
Ben.
Yeah,
Right.
he doesn't end up dying right away though, and like they say that Ben took exactly 14 breaths on his own before he finally died. I guess that's something he could have actually known, but like other details, like at one point he says like it took exactly 36 minutes for news to spread around the town and for everyone to know.
So it really, like, to a certain extent, it makes you question the reliability of Charlie's narration. Like, the beginning of the movie is kind of structured around him writing a newspaper article, and I think because he is like an aspiring writer, inspiring journalist,
yeah,
I feel like there's a statement being made about how invariably there's going to be biases and assumptions made. Like, what's the expression that's like, never let the truth get in the way of a good story?
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
these, like, almost, I mean, what I took away from this screenplay and what I found pretty interesting about it was how there's so much to, like, crafting narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in terms of how the town viewed Casper. Like, we see, there's a scene later on when he gives Becky a ride home on his motorcycle. And Mr. Monroe says, "Oh, who was that guy that dropped you off?" And so, like, Mr. Monroe doesn't even recognize Casper, has no idea who he is.
Right.
But he definitely has an opinion about him.
Right. If
that's
he knew that was Casper, he would be like, I don't want you seeing him. He pretty much believes that's the guy that murdered his other daughter.
If he knew that it was Casper...
Right, he would flip.
He would have flipped because he knows Casper's reputation. But Casper's reputation is based less on Casper himself than on what everyone else around him says.
Yeah, because he doesn't even know the kid when he sees him.
Yeah,
so, that's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Which is why I thought it was so well done. And I think that, along with Charlie's article about Casper, which totally changes how people view Casper, and also changes how the narration in the screenplay, like, considers him. Like, at first he's this tough outsider, but then the narrator in the screenplay talks about, oh, how he's just a big softie at heart.
Right.
So it's like, at first it's more compelling for him to be this rough, rugged, like, never do well type of dude.
Yeah.
But then you have this expose of, like, or not expose, but like
the opposite almost.
Yeah, like puff piece about who he is, and then that becomes more interesting. Like, oh, this is misunderstood kid from the other side of the tracks, who is actually just a nice guy.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's like, yeah, like you're saying, everyone loves the story of like, oh, this no good burnout kid. Yeah, he's the killer, and then when you surprise him and it twists and actually he's actually a really nice guy, he's just misunderstood, that also makes a great story. But then the tragic thing in the end, he's a very like tragic character, is that in real life things are not really that simple, and it's not like they were trying to sway you the opposite way by saying like, oh, he's just a big softie. It's that you can be both of those things in real life. It's not so simple. It's not black and white. Like, he has that softer side of him, but if you push him, like, he can also kill you with a rock. Like, it's the same person. Both things can exist in the same person. And in telling the story, focusing on one, you're omitting the other, and you're not, though you haven't lied, you've committed like a lie of omission. Right, yeah. I was going to say also, it covers like several seasons. It gives some of the history of the town. There was like a house that burned down that same year, which was a big deal because it was like a historical home. So Frank Lloyd Wright house, yeah. A girl like drowned in the lake that summer. The forest where Charlie finds the bodies ends up burning down later in the story, and that's also a very, I think, supposed to be symbolic sort of thing. I don't know what for exactly, but it's just nice to have these sort of like mile markers and like things that you can tell mean a lot to the town, and like
Well,
their world has changed a
and
lot.
that's really effective in a coming of age story, or one that like thematically is kind of about how things invariably change and
Right,
time passes. Like you have tangible things to anchor that theme to.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily all about the main characters.
Yeah.
So it kind of breathes life into it.
Right. I want to make one like critical point of this, which is like
Yeah.
my main dislike.
Go for it.
Was just that all of this coming of age stuff felt very empty to me. There were a lot of nice bells and whistles on here. There were a lot of like really cool descriptions, and the narration had a lot of color and character to it. But at the end of the day, I don't know what it really amounted to. It was empty to me. Like that line I had at the end that I put in the synopsis about how like we grow up in spite of and because of these like tribulations or whatever. Like, okay, great. So that basically summed it all up to me. He says life goes on. It's like, yeah, so then what was the point of all this if like you just grow up anyway? It's like,
but I mean,
I don't know what they got out of it.
Not that it's particularly pround like observation, but
like the point is that there is no point, that kind of thing.
I mean, sure. Like, what else? To say if we're to take that being the point of view of the of the writer, and that's like what the writer believes, then like to say anything else would be disingenuous, right?
I guess, but just that life goes on, that's a pretty like dismissive, almost offensive way to like gloss over someone who was murdered. Multiple people that were murdered in this script. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it's dismissive so much as it is inevitable. Like it depicts how the town continues to function and continues to exist through like several effective montages, I thought.
But like, okay, they have this thing where earlier in the script, Charlie goes to his locker at school and he like opens it and they actually specify the combination. Yeah. And I thought when I read that, like, why could that possibly matter? Yeah. At the very end, when he's at that high school reunion and he's reflecting back and you get that final line, he goes to his locker, he's like roaming the halls again as, you know, like a 40-year-old or whatever, and tries the same combination on his old locker and it doesn't work anymore. And I felt like the script wanted that so hard to be like a really profound moment, and I have no clue what it was supposed to mean. It felt totally empty to me.
Well, the locker is no longer his, right?
Yeah.
The combination's of course going to be different. Like time invariably passes.
But I don't know.
Like it's no longer now it's someone else's. Now their experience in high school is happening, and he has moved on. His life has gone on, in whatever that line is. It's
that felt so mundane of an observation to me.
I know, but it's not just. I feel like it's not just that. It's reinforced other times in the screenplay. There's when Casper and Becky, they go on a date to like the planetarium, and they're talking about how Earth is just one planet in the galaxy, and the galaxy is one of, and
billions of galaxies,
infinite number of galaxies in the universe, and the universe, just getting to like the ultimate insignificance of each and every person. And yet within that, the people, they exist and they love and they lose and they grow up and they die and everything else. Like, despite the fact that like none of it matters, like it still matters to them.
Yeah.
And I think it's reinforced. So at the reunion, he's there with his
now wife,
and Bernice, his first girlfriend, is there with, whoever she's married to or dating or whatever, her partner. And, it's just, time's gone on. Like high school is just such a small moment in these people's lives. If you try and draw a parallel between the scene in the planetarium and high school is the Earth, and a lifetime is like the universe.
Okay. I like all of what you're saying. I just don't think it was really here to me. Didn't come across.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it comes across more clearly on screen, but that's kind of how I looked at it. And I feel like enough of this stuff ties together for me to feel that it's purposeful.
Okay.
And pretty interesting. There was something else I wanted to say, but I'm blanking on it.
Oh, unrelated. I had a hot take I wanted to just give, sort of related to this, but I wonder what you think about this. I'm starting to think, maybe partly from reading all these scripts, maybe from just my own writing and watching movies and stuff, I'm starting to think backstory is overrated for characters.
I like that, yeah.
And I feel like we don't get a lot for most of these characters because it's so sweeping. You have all these characters you're following, and it's probably like because they're archetypes that helps. You don't need as much. You just know that type of character already. You kind of know who they are. But yeah, I kind of think backstory is overrated. I was just watching The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
Like the main love story. I'm getting way off topic here.
No,
I apologize.
Go for it. I'm
but
listening.
I'm trying to make this relevant. It's just relevant to storytelling in general.
Yeah.
But you've got like the main romantic leads of The Princess Bride. Their only backstory is that she worked on a farm and he was the farmhand. Mm-hmm. And they just fell in love basically. And they were going to get married, but they don't have money. So he runs off to like make his fortune by adventuring around. Mm-hmm. And then of course they're reunited later. But like, there's basically nothing about them as people that makes it make sense for them to have like some connection, like they have something in common, or like, oh, this is that person's flaw as a character, and that makes sense, and that links them to this person. There's no real like logical reasoning for why they should be together. It's just they fall in love, and it works.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think that I'm
more
okay with that.
Movie.
Yeah. Sure. But here, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of backstory either, and these kids fall in love. Like
Casper kind of conveniently falls in love with Becky.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe a high school thing too, is that you just have these crushes on like the most random people.
Yeah, and it's also so small.
Yeah.
It seems so big, but it is so small. Like, you could...
But
yeah.
I feel like if the characters are well drawn enough, it's like you understand who they are and you don't need to know why they are that way and like how they got that way.
Right.
If it feels real, there's just like an intuitive understanding.
Well, then you can hint at it or like get it in glancing blows through just like character things. Like, you can get their backstory through their interactions with other people. The way they behave,
yeah, totally. I think I'm just kind of struggling to really pick this particular screenplay apart. I don't have a lot of my usual tools at my disposal here because I feel like because it doesn't have a main character, that's a lot of my way into stories, and that's the way I usually approach writing stories. I have a very structural minded approach, and it's usually focused on one character and their motivation and tracking that, and this just isn't one of those stories, but it's still pretty good. I still like it. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get to the verdicts here now because I think we're already running kind of long. But
you have a lot of stuff that I've said to...
No.
I mean, I guess we both went off topic a little bit.
But anyway, I still think, as much as I liked a lot of your interpretations and stuff, those didn't come across as much for me. And my verdict, if I may go ahead, I know you usually go first.
No,
but...
you're welcome. That's only because you're... I don't know.
I'm more confident this time than usual. I've thought about this. I actually thought about this in advance for once. I'm gonna pass on the writer, but consider the script.
Okay.
And here's why.
Yeah.
I really like I said, there were a lot of cool bells and whistles on here, stylistically. Their narration was really great, and really evocative of this time and this place, and really painted a picture with a lot of like details that really felt cool. But then those moments that I felt were supposed to be really symbolic and meaningful just were kind of empty to me. Like, I didn't get the thematic side of it wasn't there. And so again, the script, I'm willing to consider that because a lot of the pieces are here, but I think you need to still fill out a little bit of, in terms of what, like a good director could easily, I think, imbue this with a lot of meaning and really like make a lot of these moments more like deep and actually substantive. But I just pass on the writer because I just don't think you can't teach someone how to have something to say. And I feel like this person doesn't have anything super novel to say.
Sure. Okay.
The message was kind of flat for me. So that's my verdict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Well, I'm kind of bummed that it's going to be made into a TV series.
You think it'll lose some of its essence?
I mean, I really liked it as a movie. It's not that long either.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like not everything coalesces as well as it could have, but I think like it's still a pretty bomb stew.
What? Wait, so what's your official verdict?
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to say before I said it, though.
Oh.
Oh, it was going to be to your point about some of the stuff, like, Charlie is twice interrogated by the Detective Hoffman.
Right.
First time he requests the Mountain Dew, and then the last time he requests a coffee black.
Right.
And that was, like, maybe the most on-the-nose part.
About, he's a grown-up now.
He's a grown-up now. Like, how much has he changed? How
right.
He's changed so much in this past year. No more Mountain Dews, now coffee.
Yeah.
Like, that was a little forced and a little blunt. Too much, more than I would like, I guess. But maybe that plays better on screen or in the context of the movie. Overall, I really liked it. I would recommend.
Okay.
I'd toss out a recommend for. I guess you can't really recommend I don't know.
Can you recommend a script without recommending the writer? Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah, and I suppose you can.
Yeah, I think so.
But
like, if you think this script is great, but it's like the one good script they had in them, I don't think there's much more they have to say.
Sure.
I think that would merit that.
Okay. Or they just have like a great concept, and they executed it terribly, maybe. But that's.
Or I guess that.
But you probably wouldn't recommend that script. That being said, I would recommend both. Not like my most adamant or steadfast recommend that I've doled out so far, but I think this is. I think it's really good. I really liked it. And, I'm sick, so normally people don't like things as much when they're sick.
So you're delirious and you don't know what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is the fact that I was so engaged and managed to power through.
Despite being sick.
Managed to power through despite my nighttime Robitussin cough syrup. Makes one drowsy. I think it's a testament to the effectiveness.
Whoa.
That's professional. That was my cell phone.
Point taken.
So so we both liked it. I guess.
I did like it overall.
I liked it more overall, and I feel like we're on the same page. Just some things,
It's not like you were saying. It's what you were saying about being guilty of omission. I feel like it applies almost to what I'm saying. It's not that I am passing on the writer because there were things that were bad. It's more because I feel like there were things missing that could have been good.
Sure.
But I still consider the script because there were some things I really liked about it. So, there you go.
There we go. So, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ospodcast. You can email us at ospodcast. No.
You always get the email wrong. info@ospodcast.com.
Yep, that. You can find our website at ospodcast.com. We're on Twitter, YouTube.
Yeah.
We're going to do something a little different, kind of fun.
Right,
we're going to post a poll on our Facebook page.
You guys get to decide what we're going to read next.
Exactly.
Because I've been kind of wondering about this, and I want feedback, and this is just the most direct way I feel like we can get this from you, is what you would rather see us read. Would you rather we read things that are more topical or timely or relevant, like Bright, when we read that right after that script got sold for a bunch of money and it's getting made now? Or,
well, to
something...
be fair, we would definitely be down to do that, assuming we had access to all scripts that recently sold.
Right,
but
true.
That's not always the case.
I guess what I'm getting at is, would you rather we read things that are super recent and, probably going to get made, or are you interested purely in the script for the script's sake? And, if we were to read stuff that clearly is never going to get made, but it's just sort of like a important script or sort of a legendary, talked-about script by a known filmmaker that, is just a lost project of theirs or something like that. Is that something that interests you guys? So that's kind of the choice we're going to pose to you this week. We're going to let you vote, and it's on our Facebook we're doing this?
Yeah, Facebook.
So facebook.com/ospodcast. The scripts...
And while you're there...
Oh.
It's a pretty good excuse to like our Facebook page.
Yeah, sure. Why not? So Steven's chosen one script, I've chosen another, which we think epitomize one. Well, not really. But...
Actually, you didn't say that until after.
No, I'm sort of forcing this interpretation onto it. But so I guess the vote isn't exactly relevant to that choice I was talking about. But
that is a choice that we've been
Yeah,
Something
if
to
you
think
want
about.
if you want to add your 2 cents to the Facebook post about this, you can. But the vote for now is we just have each picked a script, and you just decide which one you want us to read. We're not going to say who chose which one. We're going to each read one. That doesn't mean that we're reading the one that we chose. Maybe it does. What's yours? Or what's the one you're going to read? I'm sorry.
Did you mean to do it that badly?
Well, now let's switch. So now they won't. Now they'll definitely not know.
Okay, we'll switch. Or maybe we won't switch.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna read the one. I'm just gonna read this one. "Shut In" by Christina Hodson. It's part of the 2012 Blacklist. A woman who tries to raise her catatonic son on her own suddenly discovers a shocking secret about him.
Okay.
Did I pick that? Did Daniel pick that? Did we draw it out of a hat? No one knows.
Who knows? So the other one that you can choose or not, it's a David Lynch script that probably will not get made. It's called Ronnie Rocket. All I really know is on Wikipedia it says it concerns the story of a detective seeking to enter a mysterious second dimension, aided by his ability to stand on one leg. It's by David Lynch. Certainly going to be very surreal. So one of those 2 scripts.
Yeah. So we'll put a little poll on Facebook. Maybe we'll do that right now.
Okay.
But
But that's it for now.
that's it for
So
now.
until next time.
Cool.